It is September the 6th, 2025. I'm Chris, and this is the future of photography.
The future of photography.
Hey, Adrian. We're still missing Jeremiah. He's somewhere where it's cold. He keeps sending us pictures.
He's on foot today, by the looks of him.
Yes.
Yeah, they've landed somewhere. I don't know where, but we've been receiving pictures of polar bears at play this week, and he's on land somewhere today. So who knows? But it seems to be going quite well for him.
I think it does. It's been hot here. I wish it was a bit more frosty, actually. All right. So, what camp are you in? Are you in the SOOC camp or in the Let's Fix It camp? Have you heard of the SOOC camp?
Yeah, straight out of camera, right?
Straight out of camera.
So this is an interesting one for me. I'm definitely somewhere in the middle. I am very selective in terms of the volume of pictures that I take, that I do any kind of work on after they come out of the camera. But I only have one camera that will generate straight out of camera files that I consider to be something that I actually like and wouldn't want to do anything else. So I'm kind of in two. I'd love to be straight out of camera for everything, but I tend to favour a very processed graphical style, which I can only get from one of my cameras. So yeah, I have to do work.
So you have to do, but you don't want to. You have to do work. I like the story element of a photo, and if I can't get this, I do whatever it takes to get this, usually. And the reason I'm bringing this up for this episode is because I came across a YouTube video, a series by The Movie Rabbit Hole, and the guy looks at movies, and he looks at CGI. His thing is there are so many interviews with actors, with directors, with whoever, and they all these days say, yeah, he's done it for real, and he's done his own stunts, and he jumped out of that plane, and we are not using CGI, it's all real. And this guy is a professional. He just looks behind the scenes and digs up the actual information. It turns out there is CGI everywhere. There is fixing shots, there is adding elements, there is extending scenes, there is even changing the age of people, and so on in virtually every single movie out there right now. So his series, this is the 5th out of 5. No CGI is really just invisible CGI, and he makes a pretty good point that that what they say isn't actually real. So that's what made me look into this whole thing in relation to photography, because what we have are these two camps: the straight out of camera camp and the let's fiddle with the photo after I took it back home in insert your photo app of choice.
Well, first thing I've got to say...
It's about purity versus post-processing, I think.
Okay. So first thing I've got to say is I like this guy already, right? Because in the background of his shot, he has a Jaws something or other, and Jaws is actually showing in my local cinema at the moment because it's 50 years since it was first released. Yeah. So I really, obviously 50 years ago, I didn't get to go see it. So I'm really keen to go and see Jaws while it's showing at the moment. I think they're showing it in the IMAX theatres as well. So what I'd love to do is go and see Jaws in the IMAX, but that might be if I can make that work. So anyway, but apart from that, just credit where it's due, and credit where it's due to the film Jaws as well, which is just simply awesome. The
purity versus post-processing.
Well, so generally in life, I am an outcome-based person rather than a process-based person, right? So
whatever it takes, you want the result, and you Well, not whatever it takes, of course, but
I'm also, if I can get away with it, incredibly lazy.
Okay. That's a different angle. Okay.
And also I spend a lot of my time in front of screens, and so for when it comes to my creative work and hobbies and things like that, I prefer to do without screens if I can, or minimize the amount of work that I do on computers. But I think there's another element to me that, just to throw an extra, element into this conversation, the output medium. Right. So,
sure.
I think it's easy to think that, CGI and when it comes to movies, clearly the output medium these days is digital, right? And you might see it on a big screen, you might see it on a small screen, but the output medium is digital mostly, yeah. But when it comes to photography, I think the output medium it plays a role here. So I would say I'd be more keen to think about things like how I print images than how I post-process them. But of course, you've got to get the out of camera image into the state that you can print it to get the outcome that you want, right?
Right.
So it's workflow
and I want to make very clear here, this is not a right versus wrong discussion here. Totally not, because everything no, it's not. No, it's not. But I think we are at a point in time where things, well, they already have changed and they will change much faster when it comes to editing photos. So your argument that being lazy is one of the reasons you're not editing photos with AI, you have pixel perfect selection. So in Lightroom, I can click on a person and this took hours to really select a person, including the hair and everything, to then change their color temperature or make the background a bit brighter or darker. And I think that raises a question: if it's so easy, and it is becoming even more easy, you can now tell some tools to do something like replace that cat with a dog, and it'll do it. So if it's so easy, what does that do to our value that we see in the end result? Do we shift the value somewhere else towards, I don't know, the vision rather than the technique? Because I see a really well executed photo, and I am seeing the value in the skill, in this took a lot of work to do. And now I'm able to take a picture of a crowd and remove everyone but two people who have some interaction. And
it's tricky, isn't it? So one of the reasons that I gravitated towards photography as a form of art and creativity is that I don't have the motor skills to draw or paint, right, or to throw pots or to sculpt. So from the get-go, right, my attraction to photography is,
and it's faster.
It is faster. It is fast, but that sense, it's although I've said I'm lazy in post-production, that's a feature of having photography as a hobby, as opposed to I don't want to do stuff, right? Yeah. So the for me, the it's almost a flawed question, right? Because the reason I do photography is because if I see something, I can capture it. I can use the tool to capture what I'm seeing. Whereas with other creative forms, I am unable to do. I'm physically unable to do that. I just don't have the motor skills to do it. I'm sure I could learn to be, somewhere, on the 25% up the capability curve or something like that. But I'm never going to be one of these people that is an expert, crafting stuff with my hands. So but then of course, the vision is the first part of it, isn't it?
Always. So, even if you're not making that a conscious decision, something in you goes, I want to take this picture, and that's the trigger, and that is part of that vision, is the noticing that there is something. Now let me try to find your limit of when do you think that is not a photo anymore. So pixel perfect selections, as in I can make that person brighter or fix their skin without changing the background. Is that still? I consider that totally fine, right?
I would too. For me, I mean that's an evolution of a tool that you use.
It is, yeah.
It's not changing the vision, particularly or in any way. So if you think about something, let's think of a tool like, I don't know, like the Nick software, or on some of that U-point technology they used to call it, that now exists in things.
It's changing
like
colors,
Snapseed.
contrast. It's fixing some of the light maybe a little.
It is, but
right?
it's doing it it's doing it on a gradient, isn't it? Right. So you pick the point where you want to center the effect, and it does it on a gradient. So and typically I would edit photos with radial selections, with gradients and things like that.
Yeah, but the question is not about if it's pixel perfect or not. It's more like you can now change contrast, colors, brightness of individual things in a photo.
Well, you could do that in Microsoft Paint if you wanted to. I mean, it'd be quite hard work, right?
The hurdle is quite lower now with the tools we have. So
no, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Because I've been frustrated
next level,
by selection for years.
Next level, you're taking a street photo and there's a person in the background, so you remove that person. Does removing someone, does that falsify the picture? Does it make it less valuable, or does it simply help the subject to be more the subject because you're taking a distraction out? There's or is it the trash bag that is fine to take out, but the person not? I mean, this is the second level. There are more.
Okay, all right. Well, I have a fairly straightforward answer to this one, and it depends upon how you project yourself as a photographer. So if you are a photojournalist or a documentary photographer, then especially a photojournalist, then you shouldn't be doing that, I don't think, because what you're doing then is changing what, as a photojournalist, you're supposed to be capturing what's happening. And if you start taking bits out, then you have not captured what's happening, right? And I'm not even talking about the morals and ethics of that, right? Let's not go there, because that's a big rabbit hole. I'm just saying that if you are manipulating your photograph to that degree as a photojournalist, then you are not capturing what's happening.
And this distinction, this distinction, I make that same distinction. Photojournalism is to show what's there at that point. It's more documentary, and the other side is the art photography, where actually I feel anything goes. But this is not about these two things. This is more about what does it feel like to you. Let's ratchet that up one more level.
Okay.
Moving a subject in the photo, which is easy to do these days. You pick that person, you drag it over depending on the tool, and the person these two people are now close together. They were apart. I've seen an example of someone taking a photo. There were 3 people in the photo. He took the middle person out by just telling the AI, take that middle person out, and then there was a big gap between the 2 people on the outside. And then it's just move them closer together. So they are now close together.
So if I was...
How does that feel in terms of it being...
If I was...
It's an illustration job, right? It went from a photography, from photography to illustration.
Yeah. I think it does for me, because that's, that you've got then... But the examples that come to my head, and forgive me, the second one is going to make you laugh, and I can't think why, but I'm going to say it out loud because it's in my head and I need to get it out. The first example, though, if it's something like your parents, and you're just nudging them slightly closer together, and that gives you an image that is a wonderful photograph of your parents, even if it's been manipulated in that way and you've closed a distance between them a little bit or something like that, I think, okay, great, it's an emotional thing, it's for you for personal use. The other example, and I have no idea, right? But so apologies in advance. If you're taking a photograph of Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, right, and you're moving them closer together, then you're manipulating global politics in some way, aren't you? Or you're intending to, right? And I have no idea why that example came into my head. But this is again the distinction
between journalism and art, right?
Quite possibly, yes. Yes.
So what I find really interesting is if you look at Hollywood, and I've come to understand that Hollywood does not worry about purity whatsoever.
They've no need.
Only whether the illusion serves the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about. So you see these no CGI campaigns, and they're everywhere now, to the point where in some behind the scenes footage, they make blue screens gray so they don't stand out so much. There's some really crazy stuff happening to hide the fact from the normies that they are using CGI. Anyway, so the no CGI campaigns, they are marketing spin. That's what they are.
So let me ask
Hollywood
you a
doesn't
question.
care. Hollywood doesn't care. They use it when it's necessary to help you tell the story.
Let me ask you a question. And if you are in a high budget production and you happen to have one of those enormous computerized walls nowadays that they use instead of green screen, so that actually when you're recording,
volume, it's called,
yes. So what then? So and then you record with your camera and you use the stuff that's straight out of camera, right? Does that count as CGI or does that count as just good set building?
Oh, I'm not in this point in this thing. I'm not ragging on Hollywood because that's what they do. They tell stories and they do whatever it takes to tell stories. Even though sometimes they shoot something that is perfectly fine and then they replace everything apart from the head of the actor with CGI because I don't know, the color of the suit wasn't right or something. But that's what they do. That's how they tell stories, and that has evolved over more than 100 years. I'm just trying to figure out if we can come to some conclusion in photography that's okay or not.
So let's go back to our scale of questions then, because if you do move a person, then as you said yourself, there's a hole, right? So and if you are using the computer to fill the hole, then that's not a photograph anymore, is it? Because what's in the image is not something that was captured by the camera.
But it looks like a photograph. It doesn't. If you show that to a person who wasn't there, who doesn't know the background, they will say it's a photograph.
True.
Right.
But just because they are being, just because that's their perception of it, doesn't make it true. Maybe. I guess this is where it gets to be a personal reflection, a personal thought, isn't it?
Right. So, and I think the intent behind a photo should probably decide what's acceptable, right? Journalism versus art versus, I don't know, advertising, or are these just socially accepted things? We know that the bar of chocolate on the screen flying through the air, that is like manipulated to the max.
Yeah,
and it's okay with us, right?
I think so, but then again, I wouldn't necessarily call that photography. So
I don't know. I'm not trying to find a right or wrong or good or bad. It's just an interesting discussion. Another angle that I thought about is transparency. Should we disclose that? Right? I mean, Content Credentials is trying to do that, exactly that, by getting to a point where every photo has a stamp, a metadata built in that tell you this has been taken by a person, this has been manipulated in Photoshop with AI, this has been sent over a CDN to your smartphone while preserving the information. So the Content Credentials is going there at this point. It's not as fast as we want it to appear, but it's slowly getting there.
So I do care about that when it comes to something like photojournalism, right? I don't particularly care about that in other use cases. So when the use case is something other than recording just the plain basic truth of a thing that happened in the world, then, if it's not that, then I just expect that there'll be some manipulation somewhere, right? and it doesn't bother me, right? So is there a question about should we rather than ask the question about at what point is it not a photograph, do we serve ourselves better by asking the question at what point do we care that it's not a photograph? Because practically everything we see is not straight out of camera, right?
And even if it is, your camera is making a lot of decisions for you. Every photo is already some manipulation because your first edit is framing the photo. You decide what's in the frame and what's not.
I'm sitting here looking into my camera and it's got a mist filter on it, so and
I'm standing here, and what you see behind is not what it looks like left and right in terms of how tidy it is or not.
Oh, I see. Yes.
I'm editing.
What's
right?
What's out of shot?
What's out of frame is it's different from what you see here.
And photography, even if photography is in part an exercise in reduction, isn't it? Right? It's what you take out of the frame. And so, you end up with these things like, well, okay, if you're standing in a place on the outskirts of Cairo, you point your camera in one direction, you get the Great Pyramids. You point your camera in the other direction, you got slums of Cairo, right? So, it's does that mean that the only true photography is going to be spherical 360 photography?
I think we are at a point where we I understand photography as there is no purity in photography, and never has been from the first photos, the early photo montages that showed things that weren't there. What are they called? The Cottingley fairies. There's lots of different different stories about manipulation on purpose, but then again you have a system that does a lot of manipulation already using AI. Computational photography was a term, but that is on steroids now. So for me, I think I'm in the camp, especially now that it's so easy and it's democratized. The high octane photo editing tools are now in pretty much everyone's hands. So the skill in that doesn't really matter anymore. So for me, it's really comes down to the intent. Intention is what matters, I think.
And the outcome is the outcome.
And the outcome, yeah.
Does it meet the intent? Does it serve whatever is the intended purpose?
And I'm also a process person, so I kind of enjoy playing with new processes, learning new ways to do photography or to play with photography. So, even if we don't really call it photography, the outcome might not be photography, but
yes, that's interesting. When I say I'm not so much of a process oriented person, I like you like playing with new processes and trying new things. Well, I guess when I say I'm less of a process person is that I'm not so keen on cranking the handle on the process time and time and time again, right? So the shorter and easier the workflow you can generate, the better. But I'm all well up for exploring lots of different ways to make the workflow more fun and more effective and more efficient, right? So that's cool. Yeah, interesting. Right, are we at the top of the scale yet, or have we got further to go?
No, I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole and envision a future where you tell the AI, "Oh, that's a nice photo of my daughter. Edit it the same way that you edited the one 3 months ago at the birthday party. You remember, right?" And then it goes poof, and it's as nice and as colorful and so on as it was back then.
So how is that any different from having a preset?
Well, the preset always this one would take into account what you input. The preset doesn't do that. The preset will always apply the same kind of thing, no matter what the photo is like, if it was taken in the same light and so on. So preset isn't really.
So do you know what? I'd be okay with that. I think, right? So I think I'd be okay with an AI that was just if it was a look that you had developed, right? let's say that a preset, instead of recording the changes that you made on an XY coordinate basis, right? Center the radial gradient here. Here are the parameters of that radial gradient. Instead of if it did it instead of in that sort of XY coordinate basis, it was to borrow a phrase of the moment. It was vibe coded. Let's say you had a photographic preset that was vibe coded, and let's say your preset then was, I don't know, a text file or a JSON file or something like that, and it said in it, select people subjects, raise the exposure on the face by a third, but make sure you don't blow anything out, right? Create a radial, the low or something that then you can lower the relevant exposure on the background. Move it around and find a crop that meets the golden ratio. But all of this was just text instructions, right? That an AI would then interpret for you. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'm just as everyone else. We're just in the middle of this development of things moving really fast down the road. I found myself just a couple of months ago. I found myself changing the way I take pictures because of the possibilities, which always play into my photography. I take a picture of something, I know I will have to brighten up these shadows, but I can't expose it any higher because then I will lose that other bright part of the picture. So I take my tools into account. And a couple of months ago, I took a picture of some people, and there were other people in the photo, and I could have waited or moved around and tried to hide those other people behind some shrubbery, but I didn't, because I knew that it's one click of the mouse to take them out. So I did that, and then there was a vision, and I did things that would have taken me, I don't know, half an hour normally, and it took me 2 seconds. So yeah,
cool.
It's interesting. It's interesting because we will change the way we see photography.
Well, that's a version, isn't it, of shoot with the edit in mind, right? So
and with tools on steroids in mind, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm okay with the tools on steroids thing, because going back to the preset thing, right? If you use an application like Luminar Neo, where you have things like change the eye color, right, or brightness. That's not that. That's a slider that needs to analyze the photo to find the eyes, to work out what's what, or brighten faces or something like that. All I'm saying here, I guess, is that encoding that into a repeatable pattern and then ask the AI to do the same thing as you've done with the previous image. I'm all right with that.
Me too. Me too. I think, again, this is not a right or wrong discussion. This is just a food for thought discussion.
Yes, and I think shooting with the edit in mind, right? So the way you've taken your photo, that you can solve that problem easily, and therefore what you've done is you've reduced the friction of getting the vision that's in your head out as the final product, right? Because you instead of having to wait for people and move people around and things or ask people to move, you've just taken a shot knowing that you can fix it later.
An interesting aspect of that is that a lot of people who pride themselves in their skills, as in I'm really good at composing shots, I'm really good at hiding things that I don't want the viewer to see, the skill won't be valuable anymore because you don't need it anymore. So,
is that true, or is it that there's just more steps in the workflow that you are able to exercise that compositional skill rather than it only being there at the point of capture?
We're back to the beginning, the straight out of camera thing. A lot of people pride themselves in being able to pull that off straight out of camera. To have that clean shot without the distractions in it, straight out of camera, which takes work and which takes patience and which takes experience
and craft,
and this will make this will shift the whole value somewhere else, I think.
So, and it's interesting because the example that springs to mind when you say that is that actually one of the things that portrait photographers use as a technique is what we call Rembrandt lighting. Right?
Yeah.
Now, unless I've got my history wrong, Rembrandt was not a photographer.
He was not. No.
And so he had the luxury of making the composition whatever he wanted at the point of capture, because and making the lighting whatever he wanted at the point of capture, right? Quite possibly less slow with the Impressionists who they still had lots of options, but they were trying to work very, very quickly, weren't they, and capture things as nature showed them for a fleeting period of time, right? A thunderstorm or whatever. So that was slightly different, maybe, but yeah.
So you mean he was not doing this the SOOB approach, the straight out of brush approach there?
Well, yes, but the difference being is that he didn't have a magical machine that captured what he could see as a starting position for, and these guys and girls all had to just do it from scratch, and they started literally with a blank canvas, right? So,
and you might have had an assistant who did 80% of the work for you.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which now is the AI that does the 80% of the work for you.
Well,
right?
It's worth noting, I think, here that other than photography and moving images as well, I'm struggling to think of another art form where composition is it has to be done to capture an instant, has to be it has to have a degree of reductionism in it, because and there probably are others, but at the moment I can't think of any. But things like throwing a pot or sculpting or painting or drawing or crocheting or whatever, you do start all of those with a blank sheet of paper, metaphorically, and you build your composition as you go, and you choose it as the creator and as the artist. I'm struggling to think of another art form where actually you get that leg up like you do in photography, and therefore the consequential problems and different ways and practices that come along with it.
There are art forms that have templates for sure, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, a weird one this is a total tangent here, but a weird one I came across maybe a couple of years ago. For whatever reason, I ended up on a website of a shop that caters to taxidermists.
Okay.
That's an art form, right? You need to make that deer look like it's a real deer, and it's kind of gruesome, but you have the skin and you have the
maybe start with something smaller like a cat or something.
Let's take a rabbit. But the thing is, they used to do this with wire and paper mache and stuff to make the shape, and then no, you don't do this anymore. You buy the shape. There's like 50 different rabbit shapes and different kinds of different sizes of plastic templates for deer ears, different sizes of noses and eyes and whatever. This is so yeah. Is it an art form?
I had no idea.
I had no idea myself. So there are art forms that have shortcuts built in for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But I don't think that's now with that picture in mind. I think we'll leave people hanging with that picture in mind and go on to our picks of the week. How about that? Because I don't think we can find a conclusion to this. This is a very open topic, a very look inside yourself, what you think about this topic. Maybe it sparked some discussion in our Discord, join TFOP. That's the one. Links in the show notes. So I've brought us something that is completely somewhere else. When you edit when you pick colors on your computer for a brush color or for a font color or for something else, you and I were both on the Mac, so we have this like a selection of different kinds of color pickers. There's the like a simple one that's just like crayons of different colors. You click on the red one, you have a red color. There's an RGB one where you have a red, green, blue slider, and you slide them and the colors change. In more advanced systems like let's say in your more professional photo in Lightroom or something, you have hue, saturation, luminance, HSL, for example, to pick from. Here's one that I was not aware of until just recently, and that is the OKLCH system, a color model that it's called the let me bring this on the screen, the OKLCH colors, which apparently fixes a problem. Again, not directly applicable to photography, but to the tools that we use. That fixes a problem because when you take an RGB system and you mix the different, like a classical HSL, hue, saturation, luminance, and you want to change the color, as in the hue, the perceived brightness changes because our sensory system is not linear. And the OKLCH color model fixes that. It fixes that. This is a very scientific thing, but here's an example that you see on the screen. The top row is the OKLCH system, just with the change in color, but not the brightness, not the perceived strength of the color. And the one below is the HSL system, where the colors changed and they are all over the place. You understand?
Right, because when you're building, I guess, based upon 3 primary colors, sometimes you're going to choose a color that is one of the primes, right? If you want red, it's going to be 255 red, 0 green, and 0 blue, right?
Yes.
So, but if you choose, I don't know, let's say pink, you have to blend those colors, right? Okay, so this one preserves. It's a model that preserves lightness or luminance.
That preserves the perceived brightness of the color. Again, it's not really applicable to photography itself. But if you are in the graphic field, you build any sort of a user interface or something where, let's say, people have the choice to pick colors and so on. This is a much better model. So I just want to put this out there for people. I just recently came across this, and I hope that there are ways to integrate this into our system. I'd love to be able to use that in a color picker. So
they look a little bit more pastel-y, don't they? Right? So
they do. You can get the stronger colors out of this, but then you'll have all of them with a different hue setting be stronger. So you have to compare them against each other in each row, and then you see like the blue is just so much darker than the green, with the same luminance value, the same saturation value, a different color value. So it's an interesting kind of thing that I hope will make its way into proper tools.
Interesting.
All right, what did you bring us?
Well, I brought us a book. I think as we record this, it actually isn't published until next week. So technically, it's for pre-orders. But this is a book that is called Aviary: The Bird in Contemporary Photography, and it is it's a book of bird pictures. Let's be honest, right? But it's not just.
Yeah, but look at that photography. That's beautiful.
Exactly. So the point here is that. It's a modern take on bird photography, a contemporary, certainly art-driven, not documentary-driven, but art-driven view on bird photography. It's unfortunate. The thing that caught my eye, because I first saw this in a magazine, is not in. You're showing now the best I could find in terms of a quick look inside the book and see what the pictures are in it. But if for those of our viewers who can see the screen, there's a photograph here of a kingfisher that is diving into a pool and the water is completely still, and it's been captured at the point where just the tip of the kingfisher's beak is actually in the water. And it's just astonishing. It really is. Some of this photography in this book.
Find it.
It's not on that Amazon thing.
It's not on that
It's,
one. Okay.
It's just in the magazine. I'll hold
on.
it up
Hold on.
again.
I'll maximize your screen. There we go.
Okay, there we go. So you can see then. Look at that. The tip of the kingfisher's beak is just piercing the water, which has got no ripples in it at all.
This has taken that photographer. There's a skill thing again. Did the photographer sit there for 5 days waiting for that exact moment?
Well, I don't know.
Or did they set up 20 cameras, automated?
Or have they got a 10,000 frame per second camera, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, just for everybody's benefit, I've put that down now, and you see me, but Chris isn't on the screen at the moment. So, there you are. That's right. Welcome back.
There we go.
So, that I just thought, do you know what? That's a fresh take, right? That's a fresh take on photography of the world of birds. So, yeah, make of that what you will.
That's pretty cool photography. I like this. I like the deer, the rooster. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, yes. It's the old joke, isn't it? Why did the chicken cross the road? Right. So, how you get a photo of a rooster in a city? I guess it's so somewhere not near where I live, because I don't think I've ever seen a chicken on the streets of London.
All right. Well, that's another picture that you can keep in your head. And if you found any of what we talked about thought-provoking, if you want to discuss, join us on our Discord. Link is in the show notes. We'll be back soon with more. You can find us at The Future of Photography on your favorite podcast listening app, on your video thing, wherever you go. We'll be there. All right. That was it. See you again soon. Until then.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Future of Photography